Hello, and welcome to the 60 for 30 project. I'm Xander Miller with Kenosha Public Library, and I'm sitting down with Maria Macias. Maria, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you.
Awesome, good to hear. So, what area of Kenosha are you from, or what area did you grow up in?
Very long story. So I'm actually originally from Chicago, South Side, so go Sox. And Bears too, okay?
Okay.
So just from Chicago, pretty much lived there just up until about 5th grade. And then our family ended up moving into Kenosha because my mom's job actually came this way, like her factory shut down. So it was either follow dad's job because his factory shut down as well, or come with mom. And we decided Wisconsin is closer to, Chicago. So we ended up moving here when I was in 6th grade, so around 11, 12. And we ended up living actually outskirts of Kenosha, so right like Pleasant Prairie is where we resided in, but recently moved to Kenosha, so now I'm in Kenosha.
Okay, and so what area are you in now?
Right now out by like the highway Target.
Okay.
So yep, right
in
around
here.
that area.
All right, so you moved over kind of 5th, 6th grade, you said?
Yes, so 6th grade, I actually attended Lincoln Middle School.
Oh, okay.
And because the bus would pick us up, and then that's kind of just the only school we knew, which was almost like a culture shock for me. Because when we were in Chicago, it was nothing but like Hispanics, and I tell like my students this all the time. I said, you guys won't believe it. Like our school was maybe like 800, nothing but Hispanics, and then we had, 2 other races, and it was like 1 kid of each. So when we came here, it was very diverse. So that was very different for me. When we went to school, it was totally just completely. And then entering a middle school at that, we didn't know what a middle school was. It was just elementary for Chicago, the way their public schools ran, or I should say the one I was going to, Florence Nightingale, was, 1st grade to 8th grade, and then it was just high school.
Oh, so the middle school is completely different than having that middle ground.
It was more common for like middle schools to be like in the suburbia area in Chicago. So when we came to Kenosha, they said, my dad's like, yeah, we have to enroll her in elementary school because I was a 6th grader. And they're like, no, elementary only goes to 5th grade here. So it was this big old fiasco finding out where we had to go to school. But we ended up being okay with it.
Yeah, that answer brings me to my next question. What have you experienced as Kenosha's culture, or what is Kenosha's culture to you?
I think it's evolved as I gotten older, quite honestly. Like as a kid, when I first moved here in 6th grade, like I said, it was honestly like a culture shock for me. Everything was so diverse. Like, I had never gone to classes with, nothing but Hispanic kids. So it was very like, we had the same morals, like we never hung out with our friends. It was like after school you go straight home. There were no like really after school programs, besides maybe like acting if your parents let you sign up for it. But when we came here, there were so many like different sports, the classes, the kids you were with, which I loved it because I know when I went to college, it was like a huge experience I took with me. But I would say definitely Kenosha is very diverse. I'm very proud of, where they come from, because I know the first thing that when we moved here, so people were so welcoming, whether it was kids I was at school with or like our neighbors. And I guess, Pleasant Prairie is a part of Kenosha.
Yep.
So they were just very welcoming with telling us like, oh, you should try this. And, on Saturdays, you can do this with the family. And, right away telling us about like the best local spots to hit up, like the Spa, Big Star, go for walks at like the beach. And then you have to go like on the trolley. So like all those types of things. Definitely as I got older though, I noticed like in the high school years and then a little coming back and forth from college, I seen more of like, things to go in the community because it was more of I was relying on my parents to take me places. And then of course, as I got older, I myself explored Kenosha for what it was. I see, they're very involved, especially like academically. At the high school level, we'd always be in connection with like different things that would go in, and like per se like Lincoln, you know, also work there now as a teacher. So it's almost like full circle all the way around. I know they do a lot with our community. You know, we try to help families and all that, and I've seen that outlook on it as well, not just from like kid perspective and things that you can do with the family, but more so like it's a proud community. You know, like they love their town, they're proud of it, you know, the things that we have, and, you know, support one another, and no matter what the causes are. So I think that's huge, and you don't see that as much when I did live in Chicago, because my goal was always to go back when I graduated out of college, and honestly, as soon as I graduated, I said, no thanks. It's just, I mean, there is no other, it's like a small town, you know, and I know some people want to always get out of the small town, but I don't know, I really like Kenosha. You know everyone, versus like in a city, I feel like that personalized neighbor isn't there, you know, like, you know, if I'm going somewhere, I can rely on my neighbor to like, hey, keep an eye on something. And I feel like in a bigger city that sometimes is lost. So I definitely think that, you know, Kenosha has a lot of events, especially during the summer, that are so like, you know, family friendly, or even for like, you know, older people. I shouldn't say older people. People without kids, I should say, right? Because I was a person without children at one point. But, you know, it's very inclusive, and I think that's what's very awesome about Kenosha, definitely. And they definitely push, you know, I would say like the biggest thing is like when everything shut down with COVID, and, you know, we had a little bit of like the rioting and everything going on. Like when you were there, you heard like people from Kenosha themselves, you know, saying like, hey, this is our town, we're gonna help one another, you know, supporting, whether it's supporting small businesses, you know, not canceling memberships. Like a prime example, I'm gonna give a shout out to like Kinder Music, you know, they're amazing, locally ran, and, you know, like our family per se, like we weren't taking our son in, but we know that was a small business, and, you know, you wanna support it, so, you know, you don't cancel your memberships. So like all those other things that we have, like, I wanna say like, we're a great community, you know, especially with supporting one another when we need it. So.
Yeah, that sounds like, you know, I heard, you know, like gym memberships, for example, people would cancel them with COVID, but keep supporting the local businesses. And that seems to be what you've experienced through Kenosha, is just being supported, whether it's moving here, with your work currently. That seems to be a recurring theme. It's just you've been supported. That's right? Yes,
definitely. A lot of support through Kenosha. Whether, you know, there's always someone willing to help. I know, like a prime example, when, you know, I first became a teacher, I, you know, work at a school with students, you know, who are at risk or who may need certain items or things that, you know, like, I wish you could take them all home and, you know, buy everything for them, but sadly you can't. So, you know, we encounter different people, whether it's in our work or in the community, that have, you know, availability to those like outlets and like help us to get those things for our kids. And I just think it's amazing, because all it is, you tell one person, and then within the next week, oh, I found a person that can help you in the community. You know, and I think that's awesome, because, you know, in bigger cities, like I mentioned, it's so like, oh, well, you can call here, and sometimes it's just like a dead end. Versus I feel like, you know, here, there's so much support all around, and I think that's great, so.
Yeah, just those individual connections. That's hearing someone, you know, just say, you know, like just ask a question, and someone came in and is like, oh yeah, this person could help you. That sounds great. What examples do you have of that happening?
Okay, my first year as a teacher, actually, I met another special education teacher, and her name was Ashley. And, you know, I had a couple students, you know, that would come in every morning telling me, hey, Miss M, I'm really hungry. And, you know, I didn't know we can go and get free breakfast for them, or, you know, do all these other things, or that, you know, we had, and I don't know if you've heard of her, but like Mama Artist, Miss Mosley. She is amazing. She works with like the Mahone Foundation, like, you know, her whole family has done work with that as well. And, you know, she does amazing things for our kids. You know, we adopt families on Christmas, and even just like the staff as well is so willing and giving to some of these kids. So just opening up those avenues, and we have local places that donate. When we organize like food drives for like Thanksgiving, so families have like meals and things of that nature for our kiddos. Same thing, even when I put stuff out there like, hey, I'm looking for some people to donate things for my kids and this is what I need. It's literally all hands on deck from the community, willing to donate, adopt families, and I just think that's amazing. So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
What is it that you would like to see for, kids, especially in the community growing up? Because it seems like supporting kids, you work as a teacher right now. That's kind of where you're going is. So what would you like to see for kids in the future of Kenosha?
I would like to see, and this is actually a very common theme since we came back in person. I was just working summer school. We were having a lot of, those crucial conversations with our kiddos with what happened around when school shut down and, the riots took place and Kenosha became like this big old thing. Like, who would have thought we would be seeing Kenosha on CNN, So we just had those really honest conversations and how they were feeling, because I think, our kids miss that, because even though, they were at home, they may not have processed a lot of those things that they happened with, like the shutdown, the rioting, people coming from other places, and kind of like them feeling like, is it safe for me to go out there? So I would like to see our kids, build on that and find their own voice and navigate, through the systems of like, and open up, gates of communication, because I think that's crucial for them, especially since they're, young, and we want them to, become like civilized adults and, have these conversations. So like change and different things can happen. I think that's so important for them, having those honest conversations, talking about how they can give back and help in their community as well. And I think some kids are already at that level, when the shutdown took place, that when after the rioting, how the billboards are put up or like the wood and they close everything down. Yeah. A lot of our kids were out there painting, at local businesses, trying to, keep Kenosha strong. So I think that's, amazing for them to say like, hey, this is like my community and, I care for it and I want it to, to still be standing at the end of the day. And, with that comes responsibility, but also those hard conversations that, I would feel as like teachers, we're in charge, of helping them navigate those. Mm-hmm. Not at all by any means trying to sway them in any way, but, giving them the outlet and, the guidance with how to do it appropriately.
So you'd like to see more of those happen with kids in the future.
Definitely. I think, that's giving them power to also find their voice. Mm-hmm. And, too often is it said that, a lot of people are quiet about things and, don't really speak up. And I think that's horrid. Like when kids get older, we want them, to think for themselves. And, I'm not saying, do it in an appropriate manner, but, it's important for them to have those positive role models to show like this is the right way you do it. And, this is how you inspire a community and come together. I think that is so important, and it's a key piece of information that I would love to see younger kids be involved in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The conversations you did have, how did those go?
Well, I won't say kids' names, but, some of them asked, like, where were you when this was happening? And, the shutdown, we talked about the first experience, where when we went to the grocery stores and everything was empty. Like, there was no meat, there was no produce or anything to buy. Luckily, my dad at the time was working where he can get like boxes of like fruit and thing, but it'd be like a big box of like apples or a big box or a big sack of potatoes. So, we bought like the basics of what you would use. And honestly, we traded. Like, some of my coworkers, funny, he had bacon and yeast, and you couldn't find bread. I had potatoes, onions, and some tomatoes, that we also harvest at our house. So we did a little bit of trading, and that's just kind of how it was. It wasn't a hello, leave it on my step, we'll disinfect it. So that was our first conversation, and they're kind of like, really, you did that? In their experience, we ate ramen. And I was like, oh, I wouldn't touch ramen with a 10-foot pole, but I get it. And, then it led into a more serious conversation where, they brought up, like, what were you doing during the riots? And I said, it wasn't just all rioting. It was also peaceful protest. I'm like, and that's what you also need to remember that took place. And then we opened conversations of what they saw on the news, and we said, correct. But, I asked them, did any of you guys attend? And, someone said, no, we weren't allowed to, or no, I didn't want to. I thought it would get crazy. And I said, that's perfectly fine, and I understand. That's what your parents wanted for you to keep you safe, and that's perfectly and okay. Mm-hmm. But then they asked, what we did, and we're like, some of us just watched, some of us actually went. And, I think it was very fearful when they seen just the rioting part of it, but not the peaceful protest. And that's what we had to let them know, that, there was great things happening in Kenosha. There was, I don't know the group, but I know one of my friends has mentioned that, they get together and they organize these events, things taking place to show representation for like Juneteenth that they did at Lincoln Park and things of that nature. And, I think it's important for them to know that, because they didn't know any of that. And I mean, it's part of their school as well. It's like we're right across from the park. It's great for you to know what's happening. There's music at the park too on certain days. And I think when we talked about that, we also hit on the media, that don't believe everything you see on the media, because the media is trying to sell you something. And, and I kind of let them know, there was locals around that were recording things, and you were able to watch it live. And, when a lot of that stuff happened, and then the next day when you see it on the media, it was skewed. Yeah. So that's why we say, do your own investigation. Don't just believe what you see, but kind of giving them an open mind to, like, ask questions. It's okay to ask questions, and just kind of navigating and kind of letting them, shift which way the conversation was going. And of course, they always ask, well, what do you believe in? And we tell them, all bias aside, if we would like to share that, great. If we don't want to, we don't have to. And I think that's important too. There are times that people say, well, you shouldn't stay neutral. But I think for some kids, especially being so young, you want them to develop their own opinions, and of course you don't want, your personal beliefs, also influencing that. So I think it has to be tactful in the way you definitely handle those conversations. But I mean, I can tell when the school year starts, kids are ready to talk. They want to know what was going on, and I think, it's definitely not a subject we should ignore, because, it's a big thing for teachers to help them navigate those conversations, especially in an appropriate manner. Because if they don't, are we just silencing it? Let's be real with what happened in our community. I think that's very important as well.
Yeah. And so, it's part giving kids the ability to voice, but also just getting used to hearing different perspectives from, what they just see that one time, it sounds like.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important, like I said, just because a kid has their opinion, and even if they express it, whichever way, I think it's important for them to know that. And us, as adults, as hard as it may be, take what they say with, some weight to it, not just that, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. But, I think it's important for them to, get involved in things in the community. And it's not, just in regards to the rioting or the shutdown or the local businesses, but, volunteering, getting to know different things you can do for your community. Cleaning up a park, after the 4th, or, the beach after the 4th of July when it's like a mess. So just things of that nature. I think it's important because, at least I've noticed, our kiddos as they get older, when you tell them, oh, can you guys help pick up? I didn't throw that on the ground. Well, you're right. But, it comes with a whole, be proud of your community. If you want to keep it the way it is, you also have to put in some work. And I think, with maturity and things, that evolves over time, because I know when I was a middle schooler, I'm like, oh, I'm not picking that up. We've all been there probably. But I think it's important if we start helping them, open up and find their own voices, especially with helping them process everything that's happened, just in this past year and a half in Kenosha. I think that's very important.
Yeah, all that sounds so therapeutic in a way. Like it sounds like giving a spot that they can really express what they're thinking, ask questions, and maybe they don't get the chance to, in a safe way with a trusted adult. That sounds wonderful. So I'd like to ask if there's something you'd like the Kenosha community to know, or Kenosha leadership, or something that we just missed in conversation. What would that be?
Let me think. I would say if we could, let's just try to get our youth really involved. I feel like, we do a lot, and we try to do a lot at like the school level, but I would love for, like our outside agencies and things that we do around to try to pull in the kids and, get them to do more like community service and things of that nature. Because I feel like when they feel proud of where they live, it only helps them become more invested too, in the community, and not have that disconnect. So I think that's big, and it doesn't have to be just on one specific topic. It could be whatever they're interested in. So I think that's huge. I think that's really it.
Yeah, that's more involvement for them from not just schools, because schools
school.
Can't do everything.
I wish we could, but no, we can't.
Okay. Well, Maria, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. It was great to hear from you.
Thank you.